On the evening of November 8, 1923, a pivotal event unfolded at the Buergerbraukeller in Munich that would leave an indelible mark on the course of German history. This event, known as the Beer Hall Putsch, was spearheaded by Adolf Hitler, the leader of the nascent National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party, along with key figures like Ernst Röhm, Rudolf Hess, and the war hero General Erich Ludendorff. As Gustav Ritter von Kahr, the Bavarian State Commissioner, addressed a large crowd of citizens gathered in the traditional setting of the Munich Beer Hall. His speech was abruptly interrupted by a dramatic and orchestrated takeover by Hitler and his paramilitary supporters. The putsch was not merely a spontaneous outburst, but a calculated move by Hitler to seize control of the Bavarian government and launch a larger national revolution. The evening began under seemingly normal circumstances, with attendees engaged in the customary beer hall revelry. However, the atmosphere quickly shifted when Hitler, armed and determined, fired a shot into the ceiling, declaring the start of a national revolution. This act of aggression was a signal to his followers to secure the building, effectively holding the top Bavarian officials hostage. The Beer Hall Putsch commenced on the evening of November 8, 1923, in a dramatic fashion that would become a hallmark of Adolf Hitler's approach to seizing power. As Gustav von Kahr, the State Commissioner of Bavaria, addressed a crowd at Munich's Buergerbraukeller, Hitler and his band of National Socialists staged their audacious takeover. The atmosphere changed rapidly when Hitler, flanked by Rudolf Hess and Ulrich Graf, burst into the hall, his entrance marked by a gunshot fired into the ceiling. This act startled the audience and effectively signaled the start of a coup. With the hall now under control by the SA troops, who swiftly surrounded the building and manned strategic positions, including mounting a machine gun at the entrance, Hitler usurped the platform. He declared the onset of a national revolution and announced the overthrow of the Bavarian and Reich governments, misleadingly proclaiming that the Reichswehr and police were marching on the city under the Nazi banner, an outright fabrication intended to sow confusion and bolster his position. The immediate aftermath saw Hitler coercing the highest officials of Bavaria, Kahr, along with General Otto von Lossow and Colonel Hans Ritter von Caesar, into a side room under heavy guard. There, he pressed them to support his new regime, assigning them high offices in his envisioned government. Hitler's tactics were a mix of psychological intimidation and blunt threats, famously stating that he had 4 shots in his pistol, with 3 reserved for his collaborators should they abandon him, and the last for himself if his coup failed. Despite these high stakes, his hostages remained non-committal, their silence under duress reflecting their resistance to his coercive tactics. In a moment of heightened tension and with his plan teetering on the brink of failure, Hitler resorted to outright deception. He returned to the main hall and falsely declared that Kahr and the other detainees had joined his cause, a lie that temporarily shifted the crowd's mood to one of supportive cheers. This manipulation underscored Hitler's reliance on theatrics and misinformation as tools of political leverage. However, the putsch was poorly executed with several strategic failures. Crucially, Hitler's claim of military support was unfounded. The Reichswehr and police did not back his coup, leaving him and his followers dangerously exposed. As the night progressed, the initial momentum of the putsch waned, setting the stage for its ultimate collapse under the weight of realistic military and political opposition. This marked the beginning of a critical yet ultimately doomed attempt to capture power through direct action, a move that would have profound repercussions for Hitler and the Nazi Party's approach to seizing power in Germany. As the Beer Hall Putsch unfolded, Adolf Hitler employed a combination of coercion and deception to manipulate public perception and attempt to solidify his nascent control. After securing the Buergerbraukeller and taking Bavarian leaders hostage, Hitler faced the challenge of not just holding power, but legitimizing it in the eyes of the attendees and the broader public. Initially, the crowd within the beer hall was controlled through sheer force, the presence of armed SA troops and Hitler's dramatic proclamation that the national government had been overthrown created a tense atmosphere of compliance. However, as the night progressed, Hitler's strategy shifted from overt force to psychological manipulation and misinformation, crucial tools that he wielded with manipulative skill. Hitler's public relations maneuver began with Hermann Göring's attempt to placate the increasingly restless crowd. By declaring their intentions as benign and reminding the crowd that their beloved beer was still available, Göring tried to diffuse the situation's tension and foster a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos. This approach was crucial in maintaining crowd control and preventing immediate panic or resistance. The pivotal moment of manipulation, however, came when Hitler, facing resistance from the captive Bavarian officials, returned to the auditorium to falsely declare that these leaders had joined his cause in establishing a new government. This bold lie was designed to project an image of unity and inevitable success, persuading the unsure crowd to side with what seemed like the winning team. The announcement was met with cheers, a testament to the power of perceived authority and the effect of aligning with supposed victors. This orchestration of consent showcased Hitler's adept use of propaganda techniques that would later become a hallmark of his political strategy. By falsely proclaiming the support of Bavaria's highest officials, he sought to legitimize his coup and demoralize any potential resistance by creating a facade of widespread acceptance and inevitability. These tactics highlight a critical phase of the putsch, during which psychological warfare and the manipulation of public perception were as vital as the physical takeover of the beer hall. Hitler's ability to sway public opinion through crafted narratives and strategic misinformation during the putsch foreshadowed the sophisticated propaganda campaigns he would later deploy throughout his regime. Despite the initial semblance of control, the Beer Hall Putsch soon unraveled due to strategic miscalculations and a lack of genuine support from key military and political figures. The disintegration of the putsch highlighted the weaknesses in planning and execution that would become painfully apparent to Adolf Hitler and his followers. The initial enthusiasm that followed Hitler's declaration of a new government began to fade as the reality of the situation set in. The leaders held captive Kahr, Lossow, and Caesar were not swayed by Hitler's threats and did not lend their support as he had hoped. Their non-cooperation undermined the putsch's credibility and momentum, leaving Hitler reliant on bluff and bluster. The situation deteriorated further when these key figures managed to escape shortly after they were paraded before the crowd, falsely presented as supporters of the coup. Their escape was a severe blow to Hitler's strategy, exposing the fragility of his control over the situation. As the night progressed, the putsch faced logistical challenges and a lack of coordination. Critical locations throughout Munich remained unsecured, and the expected uprisings in other parts of Germany did not materialize. The absence of a coherent strategy and the failure to secure pivotal infrastructure allowed the Weimar government to regain control swiftly. Communication breakdowns among the putschists further compounded these problems, leaving Hitler's forces isolated and vulnerable. The final blow came during the confrontation at the Odeonsplatz, where Hitler and his followers faced armed resistance from police forces. The skirmish resulted in casualties on both sides and marked the definitive end of the coup attempt. The image of Hitler fleeing the scene, coupled with the arrest of other key participants like Ludendorff, symbolized the complete failure of the putsch. In the aftermath, the Nazi Party was temporarily banned, and its leaders, including Hitler, faced imprisonment. The failure of the Beer Hall Putsch taught Hitler that power could not be seized through violent uprisings alone. This lesson would prompt a strategic shift towards gaining power via more legitimate political processes, setting the stage for the future rise of the Nazi Party through electoral successes and backroom deals. The breakdown of the putsch not only stymied Hitler's immediate ambitions, but also set in motion a reevaluation of tactics that would ultimately lead to the tragic consequences of his later rise to power. The events in Munich in November 1923 served as a harsh learning experience for the nascent Nazi movement, illustrating the limits of force and the necessity of political cunning and broader popular support. The immediate aftermath of the Beer Hall Putsch was grim for Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. The failed coup resulted in the deaths of 16 Nazis and 4 policemen, with several more wounded on both sides. Hitler himself suffered a dislocated shoulder when he fell, and he was arrested 2 days later. This event marked a significant turning point, not only for Hitler, but also for the trajectory of the Nazi movement in Germany. Following the putsch, Hitler was tried for treason in 1924. During his trial, he utilized the courtroom as a platform to propagate his ideas, gaining national attention and sympathy from nationalist elements in the society. The leniency of the trial and his subsequent light sentence of only 5 years, of which he served less than 9 months, underscored the sympathetic leanings of some within the German judiciary. His time in prison was spent dictating Mein Kampf to Rudolf Hess, a book that outlined his ideology and plans for Germany's future, further spreading his political ideas. The failure of the putsch taught Hitler that a path to power through violent uprising was untenable. This realization led to a strategic shift towards achieving power through legal means. After his release, Hitler focused on rebuilding the Nazi Party and pursuing a path of careful, strategic electoral politics, which eventually led to his appointment as Chancellor in 1933. The putsch had significant long-term implications for Germany. It was a preview of the blend of populist messaging and aggressive nationalism that Hitler would use to achieve power legally. The event also served to mythologize the image of Hitler as a committed and daring leader, which he exploited to garner fanatical loyalty from his followers. The narrative of the putsch as a heroic but failed attempt to overthrow a corrupt regime became a cornerstone of Nazi mythology. Each year, the Nazi Party commemorated the anniversary of the putsch as a day of martyrdom for the fallen heroes, using it to fuel nationalist sentiment and loyalty among the German population. Internationally, the putsch signaled the potential threat posed by extremist political movements in the destabilized Weimar Republic. It underscored the fragility of the post-World War I peace in Europe and hinted at the violent upheavals to come. The event foreshadowed the destructive impact that radical ideologies could have when combined with charismatic leadership and mass mobilization. In summary, while the Beer Hall Putsch was a tactical failure, it was strategically pivotal. It led to Adolf Hitler's rise as a national figure, shifted the Nazi Party's tactics towards legal means of acquisition of power, and laid foundational elements of the ideology and mythology that would underpin the Third Reich. This event was a critical juncture in the history of Germany, setting the stage for the drastic transformations that would follow in the ensuing decades. The Beer Hall Putsch of November 1923 stands as a profound episode in the early political life of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, encapsulating the tumult and volatility of post-World War I Germany. While the putsch itself was a failure, resulting in legal repercussions for Hitler and his followers and a temporary setback for the Nazi Party, it also set the stage for the radical transformations that would eventually lead to the Nazis' rise to power in Germany. The immediate impact of the putsch was ostensibly devastating for Hitler. Arrested and tried for treason, he could have faded into obscurity. However, the trial provided him with a national platform that he exploited brilliantly, transforming what should have been a legal condemnation into a public relations triumph. His prison sentence, during which he wrote Mein Kampf, allowed him to refine his ideology and reorganize his approach to gaining power. Instead of discouraging his ambitions, the aftermath of the putsch sharpened them. Strategically, the failure taught Hitler and the Nazi Party critical lessons about the nature of power acquisition in a modern state. It underscored the futility of attempting to overthrow a relatively stable government through brash militaristic uprisings and pointed towards the necessity of acquiring power through more insidious, legal means. This shift in tactics would later culminate in the lawful ascension to power by Hitler in 1933, following his appointment as Chancellor of Germany. The putsch also had a lasting cultural impact, becoming mythologized in Nazi lore as a heroic but tragic effort to save Germany from its supposed enemies. This narrative helped to galvanize the extremist face of the Nazi Party, providing a martyrdom myth that could be leveraged to generate fanatical loyalty among its members. The annual commemoration of the putsch as a day of remembrance exemplified how the event was woven into the fabric of Nazi propaganda. In broader historical terms, the putsch illustrated the fragile nature of the Weimar Republic and the extent to which extremist politics could destabilize an already volatile democratic experiment. It served as a warning of how political movements could exploit economic hardship, national humiliation, and social unrest to their advantage, foreshadowing the much darker events that would follow Hitler's eventual rise to power. Ultimately, the Beer Hall Putsch was not just a failed coup, it was a harbinger of the destructive impact that determined, ideologically driven movements could have on a weakened democracy. Its legacy is a testament to the importance of political stability and the dangers posed by extremist ideologies that seek to undermine democratic institutions from within.